Welcome to today's episode, where we'll dissect a fascinating topic, the human tendency to rule through fear. Joining me is Dr. Evelyn Carter, a psychologist and theologian. Dr. Carter, why do you think fear is such a common tool for control?
Thanks for having me. Fear is effective because it's a shortcut. Instead of earning trust or building relationships, fear forces compliance quickly. It's deeply rooted in human psychology. Our survival instincts respond to threats faster than rewards.
Interesting. That makes sense evolutionarily, but it feels like a poor long-term strategy. Could you share an example of this playing out historically?
Absolutely. Think of ancient rulers like Nero, who used fear to maintain power. He executed anyone who opposed him and even burned parts of Rome to suppress dissent. While effective short-term, it bred rebellion and chaos over time.
Right. But some might argue fear keeps order, especially when resources are scarce. Isn't that a valid justification in certain contexts?
A fair point, but it's flawed. Studies show fear-based leadership creates resentment and instability. For example, employee surveys reveal workplaces with authoritarian bosses see higher turnover and lower productivity compared to those fostering trust.
Fascinating. So fear may secure compliance, but not loyalty. Why do you think people gravitate toward using fear despite these downsides?
It's often insecurity. People fear losing control or being exposed, so they project that fear outward. It's a defensive mechanism. If I make you afraid, I feel less vulnerable. This fear cycle perpetuates itself unless consciously broken.
That's profound. Breaking that cycle seems crucial. What's a healthier alternative to fear-based control then?
The alternative is influence through trust and love. Leaders who prioritize empathy and mutual respect foster environments where people thrive willingly. It's slower, but far more sustainable, creating authentic connections rather than transactional ones.
Let's shift gears, Dr. Carter. Scripture offers a stark contrast to fear-based control. The Bible declares, God is love. How does this challenge human notions of power?
It's revolutionary. While humans often equate power with dominance, God demonstrates power through love and self-sacrifice. The cross is the ultimate example. Christ's strength was shown not in coercion, but in vulnerability.
That's compelling. But some might argue that even the Bible portrays God as fearsome, like at Mount Sinai. How do we reconcile that with God is love?
Great question. At Sinai, the fear stemmed from human guilt and limitations, not God's intent. Over time, the narrative evolves from a distant, awe-inspiring God to an intimate, accessible one in Jesus. Fear transforms into awe rooted in love.
So fear is more about human perception than divine nature?
Exactly. In 1 John 4:18, we're told, perfect love drives out fear. God's love seeks to redeem, not punish. Fear enforces behavior. Love transforms hearts. It's a radical departure from human power dynamics.
That's a paradigm shift. Can you give an example of how Jesus embodied this love over fear principle?
Sure, consider his interaction with the Samaritan woman. She was ostracized and lived in fear of judgment, yet Jesus engaged her with kindness and dignity. Instead of condemnation, he offered her living water, a relationship, not rules.
Powerful. But doesn't love make God seem less authoritative? Some might say fear ensures respect.
On the contrary, love enhances God's authority. True authority stems from voluntary reverence, not imposed dread. When love leads, respect follows naturally. Fear may control actions, but love wins allegiance.
That's beautifully said. It reframes God's power as something liberating rather than intimidating.
Exactly. God's power invites us into freedom. It's not about making us cower, but lifting us up. That's the essence of divine love, transformative, not transactional.
Building on this, let's explore how fear plays out in our relationships. Dr. Carter, why do people sometimes resort to fear tactics with loved ones?
It's often unintentional. People use fear like threats or guilt out of desperation to control outcomes. A parent might yell to enforce discipline, but it's rarely about the child. It's the parent's own anxiety spilling over.
That's relatable. Do you have an example to illustrate this dynamic?
Sure, a couple I worked with had a pattern. One partner used silent treatment to punish the other during conflicts. The root issue wasn't the argument itself, but a fear of abandonment driving that behavior.
Wow. So fear manifests in subtle ways. But isn't fear sometimes necessary, like setting boundaries with kids or employees?
Boundaries are vital, but they don't require fear. A study by Dr. Daniel Siegel shows that children thrive when parents use connect and redirect strategies, balancing empathy with firm limits. It's about guidance, not intimidation.
That's insightful. Let's address the counter-argument. What about situations where immediate compliance is critical, like emergencies?
Emergencies are exceptions. In those moments, clear directives matter, but in non-crisis situations, leaning on fear erodes trust. Over time, relationships built on fear become transactional and lose emotional depth.
So fear is a short-term fix with long-term costs. How can we shift from fear to love in relationships?
It starts with self-awareness. When we feel the impulse to control through fear, we should ask, what am I afraid of? Identifying and addressing our insecurities allows us to engage others with honesty and empathy.
That's a thoughtful approach. What's one practical step listeners can take to build trust instead of fear?
Practice active listening. When people feel heard, they're less likely to resist. It's about creating a safe space where they feel valued, which naturally fosters cooperation without coercion.
Such an important takeaway. The power of love and understanding over fear cannot be overstated.
Absolutely. Love isn't weakness, it's the ultimate strength. It creates bonds that can withstand challenges without the need for fear.
Let's zoom out to a societal level. Fear often arises from a sense of scarcity, be it resources, power, or opportunities. Dr. Carter, how does scarcity fuel fear-based hierarchies?
Scarcity creates competition. When we believe there isn't enough to go around money, jobs, respect, we instinctively try to hoard what we can. Fear becomes a tool to protect what we perceive as limited.
That resonates. History is full of examples of leaders hoarding power. Could you share a specific instance?
Certainly. Think of colonialism. European powers feared losing global dominance, so they exploited and intimidated entire nations. It was fear-driven control disguised as civilization. The fallout persists today in systemic inequalities.
A painful legacy, no doubt. But some argue competition and fear drive progress. Isn't scarcity sometimes a necessary motivator?
It can spark innovation, but at a cost. Research by economist Elinor Ostrom shows cooperative systems like resource-sharing communities outperform competitive models in sustainability. Fear divides, collaboration builds.
So cooperation thrives where fear falters. How does this principle apply to modern challenges like climate change or social justice?
These issues require collective action. Fear-based policies like scapegoating migrants only deepen divides. Instead, fostering trust and shared responsibility, as seen in global initiatives like the Paris Agreement, drives meaningful progress.
That's encouraging, but skeptics might say trust is idealistic. How do we build it in a fear-driven world?
It starts at the local level. Transparency and consistent action build credibility. For example, community-driven policing reduces crime by fostering trust, not fear. Small steps ripple outward to create systemic change.
A hopeful perspective. What's one forward-looking insight for combating fear in societal structures?
Education is key. Teaching critical thinking and empathy dismantles fear-based narratives. When people understand that resources and power aren't zero-sum, they're more open to collaboration and equity.
Love that. Fear may be instinctual, but breaking the cycle is possible with intentional effort.
Absolutely. By choosing trust over fear, we can reshape societies to reflect collaboration, not domination.
Let's bring this closer to home. Leadership often defaults to fear tactics. Dr. Carter, how can leaders shift from fear-based methods to empowerment?
It begins with redefining success. Fear-driven leaders focus on control, while empowering leaders prioritize growth. By investing in their teams, they create environments where individuals feel valued and motivated.
That's insightful. Do you have an example of a leader who embodies this approach?
Absolutely. Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, transformed the company by fostering a growth mindset. Instead of fear-driven tactics, he encouraged innovation through empathy and collaboration. Microsoft's resurgence speaks volumes.
Fascinating. But critics might say empowerment takes too long. Isn't fear faster in high-stakes situations?
Perhaps, but it's unsustainable. Studies show fear-based workplaces experience burnout and high turnover. Empowerment, while slower, yields lasting loyalty and creativity. It's an investment with compounding returns.
Makes sense. What's a practical step leaders can take to start this transformation?
Active listening is a game changer. When leaders genuinely hear their teams, they build trust. For example, regular one-on-ones can uncover concerns that, left unaddressed, might escalate into larger issues.
That's actionable. But what about leaders who feel they'll lose authority if they're too empathetic?
It's a common fear, but unfounded. Research shows empathetic leaders are rated higher in effectiveness and respect. Authority rooted in mutual respect outlasts authority rooted in fear.
Interesting. How does this apply to parenting, another form of leadership?
Parenting thrives on empowerment. Instead of fear-based discipline, approaches like positive reinforcement foster trust and independence. It's about guiding, not controlling a principle that applies universally to leadership.
So true. What's one forward-looking insight for leaders aiming to embrace empowerment?
Leadership of the future will be relational, not hierarchical. Those who can inspire rather than intimidate will shape not just organizations, but entire cultures. The ripple effect is profound.
Beautifully put, Dr. Carter. Leadership as a force for good, not fear, is a vision worth striving for.
Absolutely. When leaders choose empowerment, they reflect the kind of love that transforms, much like the divine model we've discussed today.
To wrap up, let's bring this home for our listeners. Dr. Carter, how can individuals live out this principle of love over fear in daily life?
It starts with self-reflection. Ask yourself, am I acting out of fear or love? Awareness is the first step to change. For instance, choosing to address a conflict calmly rather than lashing out builds bridges, not walls.
That's practical. But what about environments steeped in fear, like toxic workplaces or strained families?
Great question. In those cases, start small. Acts of kindness like listening without judgment can shift dynamics. One person's courage to lead with love often inspires others to follow suit.
So even in difficult settings, change is possible?
Absolutely. Take Nelson Mandela, for example. After 27 years in prison, he chose reconciliation over revenge. His leadership transformed a nation, proving that love is more powerful than fear, even in the harshest circumstances.
Wow, that's inspiring. But skeptics might say it's unrealistic to always act from love. How would you respond?
Perfection isn't the goal. Progress is. We'll fail sometimes, but each intentional choice to love over fear rewires our instincts. Over time, it becomes a habit, not just an ideal.
That's encouraging. What's a simple daily practice to cultivate a love-driven mindset?
Start with gratitude. Studies show it rewires the brain for positivity. Keep a journal, noting 3 things you're grateful for each day. Gratitude shifts focus from scarcity and fear to abundance and love.
I love that. Gratitude as a foundation for love and trust. What's a forward-looking insight to leave our listeners with?
The future belongs to those who embrace love as strength. By choosing connection over control, we not only transform ourselves, but also the world around us. That's the essence of living beyond fear,
What a powerful way to end. Thank you, Dr. Carter, for your wisdom and insights today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a joy to discuss such a transformative topic.
All right, that's all for this episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.